The diaspora connect with India, I describe it as the story of 9 bridges. There could be more, but I'll focus on just 9. First, the diaspora alumni. They connect with schools, colleges, universities, IITs, IIMs, where they have studied, through teaching, through donations, through sponsoring chairs, through occupying chairs, through setting up centers. For example, right now in IIT Bombay, the Wadhwani Foundation from Palo Alto is setting up completely new life sciences center for IIT Powai. And this is one of many examples where alumni are connecting back with their old educational institutions. And this is enriching India enormously and is an example which I'm sure many are doing around the world. The second bridge, I call this the alumni bridge. The second bridge is what Parag referred to, Silicon Valley. And what has happened in Silicon Valley is got transferred to India, to Bangalore and other places in Bombay, which I call the entrepreneurship bridge, because venture capital was not there in India. Venture capitalists were not there in India. And I think Silicon Valley has brought this whole process into India, taught us how to move the entrepreneurship movement forward into India, and given enormous courage to young Indians to go down the self-employment entrepreneurship way rather than just working for other people. Third, I would call it the thought leadership bridge. People like Professor C.K. Prahlad of Michigan Business School, and he has been to Singapore here before he passed away prematurely. They've given us a vision for the country. They've given us a roadmap for the country. They've given us things like, we have to skill 500 million young people over the next 12 years. And this roadmap, these targets have been actually accepted officially by the country, have formed part of the President of India's address to Parliament, and have led to the Prime Minister setting up a structure to drive the skills development movement. And we've got Girija Pandey sitting here, but his senior colleague, Mr. Ramadurai, Vice Chairman of TCS, is today the apex of skills development in the country as advisor to the Prime Minister with cabinet rank, purely for skills development, purely to make this 500 million skilling happen. And I know that he was here recently, and Girija took him around to visit ITE, which is an amazing institution of Singapore, which we want to replicate in India. Fourth, the technology bridge. People like Sam Pitroda of Chicago, who brought a revolution in telecom to India in the 80s and is now building a world-class information infrastructure for the country, a transformational role through technology which is changing India, has changed and continues to change India. 5, the research bridge. There are people like Professor Abhijit Banerjee of MIT, who head the poverty labs out of MIT. By the way, they work not only in India, but other South Asian countries and in African countries, where they are doing research on poverty, collecting data, doing analysis, feeding the findings into government agencies and policymakers, helping to find micro and macro solutions. And this is a quality of research which we have not seen in our country before. 6, the policy bridge. Teachers and policymakers like Professor Raghuram Rajan of Chicago University of Chicago, who are chairing key policy committees in India, volunteering time and energy, no payment, and helping us to frame new policies for the future. And I'm deliberately mentioning names because it makes it more real. You can touch and feel and these are the guys, but there are many more. I'm only giving a very few examples. 7, the relationship bridge. Indians in the US, working with US Congress, working with the congressmen in the states and the senators in the states across the country to communicate the Indian perspective, to communicate the Indian issues, and building a relationship and understanding with US policymakers, bringing them out to India, connecting them to people in India, and therefore acting as a two-way bridge between countries, as it were, in a very unique way. The nuclear deal was mentioned, and the Indian community in the US were at the forefront of the communication exercise with US Congress and the US administration in making that happen. 8, I'll call this the mentorship bridge. National leaders of other countries of Indian origin whose counsel is sought by India, accepted by India, and has enhanced bilateral relations and our own development. An outstanding example is President Nathan. He has been the guest of honor at our annual diaspora event, and he has, as has been mentioned several times, given the idea for this convention, is someone like him who India looks up to enormously and benefits from his knowledge and his expertise. And 9, and last, I'll call it the development bridge. Leadership in transforming different areas of development such as health and education, which are huge challenges in India. And there are people like Professor Amartya Sen who are spending a lot of time coming into India 3 to 4 times a year from Harvard and sharing knowledge, research, and helping us to deal with these very tough challenges of health and education. So as I said, there are more examples, but I will not take too much time on these. But I wanted to give these examples as the ways in which this two-way bridge can work. All the time, I think we see this now, the diaspora is a brain bank. In the old days, we used to call the diaspora the brain drain. This is a huge change in perception that has come. The diaspora is an asset. The diaspora are not people who have run away from the country, because they are giving back, they are connecting, and they are contributing, and all of it comes under what I'd call the talent bridge of the diaspora. The unique thing is that the diaspora is integrated in the countries in which they live. Singapore is a wonderful example of how the Indian diaspora, and I'm sure other South Asian diaspora, are completely involved, engaged, and integrated into Singapore, and are providing quality of their thoughts, their ideas, their entrepreneurship, their research, their teaching in the country. And this is an amazing phenomenon. And for me, when I look at a country like Singapore, and I say, if my children were ever to move out to another country, I would say, go to Singapore, because for me, it's like a perfect place. It's like a home away from home. There is one more aspect which I will touch on before I conclude, and that is culture. I think the South Asian culture is amazingly rich. Music, we love to have the singers, the artists from Pakistan, from Bangladesh, and other South Asian countries performing in India. And I know that our artists go and perform in other South Asian countries. And our Bollywood is, of course, that culture is also spreading rapidly. So this culture connect, which is there across South Asia and which connects us to the world, is another amazing part of the diaspora. The world is changing. As Parag has said, globalization has connected people through technology as never before. And we will see this happening more and more. We will see this happening with greater ease. What I see is that this is the right place for us to meet. The second diaspora convention, South Asia Diaspora Convention, the third, the fourth, will show incremental growth, incremental development, and I hope South Asians will get connected intimately through Singapore. And I thank you, Gopi, for making this happen.
Well, those were very, very profound and instructive remarks, Mr. Das, and I wish to thank you for it.